in today's society, men have abandoned the ability to have rational discussions because they've gotten to a defeatist mentality of what's the point of going further into knowing objective truths and objective things because I don't get rewarded for it. My boss is not going to give me a position higher because of it. I don't see any benefit from having a critical and more assessed mind in situations. I just want to do now, this is the problem with the society, I just want to do carnal things. And the carnal thing is getting the penis wet. The carnal thing is playing video games. The carnal thing is satisfying their immediate flesh.
To give you a piece of my mind.
Far from Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you type that into a search engine and see the boys on those clips. We got everything for you. We got the website, www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got all the links up there. Make sure you check it out. Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. That's far_from_normal_podcast. Check it out. You already know. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision. You know, I see the world clear. And you know, I see the future. And the future is bright. You already know. Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's. If you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or you want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, drop the handle, baby.
You already know what it is. It's your boy, Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram at Sonny, SONNY, Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you do check out my Instagram page, check out my stories because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. So let's not forget, any dream that you're trying to achieve, the only way that you'll ever achieve it is through execution and putting a plan to motion. So make sure that you don't just stay in the dream world, and make sure you make it a reality.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And Fuzzy, let's get him.
Sometimes when you're in Toronto for too long,
There's nothing to see here.
Exactly. Well, it's not that there's nothing to see.
What's here
It's
to
not
see?
that there's nothing to see here. You become blinded of seeing the same thing every single day. So you're not able to see different angles. When you go elsewhere and then you come back, you have fresh eyes. You're able to see things that you couldn't see before. It's just like there's always opportunity in every country you go to. That's why there's people that capitalize off those opportunities while others don't. Where others don't see something in a country, others do. So therefore, it's your field of vision that's stifling your progress in certain societies. So therefore, you need to actually get a wider scope of the society that you're in and have a better understanding of where the opportunities lay. So it's all based off your perception of the society, what will determine if you're going to make money in the society or not.
That's true. I mean, I think a lot of people that when you're born somewhere, obviously, and you grow up there and you have the teachings there, I think it's not helpful for a lot of people to just stay within their own environment. I think things change all the time. I think that as you get older and you start realizing that there's so many other things going on, we should start looking at different places to maybe visit or see where opportunities are. I mean, that's just typically, if somebody can't see outside of their own environment, a lot of the times their opportunity is limited. So I think that you have to be able to look outside, travel, see other cultures, see other opportunities, whether that's work-wise, environment-wise, who you're around, what's motivating you. I think that's like a big thing that is never talked about, especially when you grow up in a society. Usually the point of you growing up in that society is to be a contributor of society. So they're not going to push you to go outside of that, because that doesn't make any sense towards the society. The government wants you to be a contributor to the society, pay your taxes, work a job that is obviously funding the economy of your country. So the last thing they would want you to do is to travel and maybe explore other options.
Oh, 100%. That's why they kind of keep you busy in the sense that, you know, they have you working all the time and they pay you just enough that you can survive, but not enough for you to thrive.
Yeah.
And they also, another thing I've noticed about the societies, or this society specifically, is that they want to separate you from your family, because I think that's a more of a divide and conquer technique that they use, which they use in warfare, because you're stronger together rather than being alone. And that's one thing I've noticed in my own travels, that when you're a collective group, you're able to go further than you doing stuff solo. And a lot of times people tend to want to go their own route, where they're like, oh, you know what? Even though I live in this society, I want to separate myself from my family. I want to basically pave my own road. I want to do my own thing. I want my own privacy. I don't want to be around family all the time. But it's with family is where things actually are able to manifest in terms of investments. You're able to basically use the money that you use for your rent. You can now take that money that you would have used for your rent. You can now use it for investment purposes. And I think a lot of people ignore the fact that when they're with family or with a community, that they have that leverage. They'd rather go out there on their own, struggle just for their own privacy. And a prime example of people that thrive in society, you can look at the Chinese, you can look at the Indians, you can look at just Asians in general. If you look at their community, when it comes to Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, you look at Indians, you look at the Jewish community. These are all communities that are thriving because they're together rather than being apart. And I think,
hold on, I want sorry, just to interject, because I don't want you to get too far ahead in that topic. I want to bring it back to you're talking about them, just basically working together with your family to make your opportunities bigger.
Yes, and I was using the examples of other
these different communities. So
different
I wanted to talk about, like, where does this come from? Because I'm under the impression, like, think about it, in the city we're in, of course, I just seen a statistic that said the average age for a homeowner in our province of Ontario, because this is Toronto based, so it's the average age of a first-time home buyer is 36.
Okay.
A 36-year-old, right? So, of course, we know as men in our society, we understand that, especially when it comes to dating, certain things are expected of men at a certain age. And, of course, far younger than 36, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of women have it in their head that even if you're in your 20s, that you should have a place, or you should have your own place. You shouldn't be under your parents' roof. You shouldn't be, basically, you shouldn't lack certain financial prowess. You should be able to live an independent lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you're talking about how a lot of communities work together.
Yes.
So where do you think that comes from? Because working together seems to, seems to give communities the ability to boost themselves, the ability to elevate themselves from the current situations they're in, because people are working together and they're making the sacrifices early. But when we look at, say, dating, it's completely opposite, where you feel ashamed, or you feel like, you might have to embellish the truth, or omit the truth in order to, make yourself look a little bit better. So what's your thoughts on that in terms of the perception of, say, living with your family instead of working with your family, and how that, affects the perception of you? Maybe people might think you're lazy, or you're not making enough money, or you don't have that hustle in you. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I would say about that is, well, let's look at, I'll use warfare as a prime example. They say all warfare is based off perception, right? In life, you don't need to tell everybody your situation. It's unnecessary. It's redundant. All you need to do is deal with what's going on at that moment. They don't need to know every aspect of yourself. Like, for example, let's say you're in a certain type of financial situation. You letting them know about your like if you're dating a woman, you letting them know about your financial situation. How does that benefit them? And how does that benefit you? Because they're not going to assist you on you telling them, you being truthful and telling them about your financial situation. They're not going to help you. So why even go out there and tell them what your struggles are?
We're living in very different times. I keep hearing what you guys are saying, and I think to myself, there's so many conversations we're having simultaneously. We're touching about different categories of nuance here. When you guys say, why should you disclose, your financial situation with a woman? You should. You definitely should. The question is, who are you disclosing it to? Obviously, if you go on a dating app, why are you going on a dating app? What's your objective? What's your goal? It seems to me that the goal in that situation, right, would be to sleep with said woman or, find a woman that you can, one night, fun time, or whatever you have going on in that regard. But if you're trying to build with someone, financial discussions are definitely paramount, and you have to be able to go into that. Now, if you say, it's going to hurt you if you suggest to the woman that you are struggling, it's like, you don't need to suggest to these women. Not in today's culture. They feel it, they see it, they hear it in your tone. Everything about you already gave yourself off. So when you were talking about it being a warfare, the women have already won in that, or the enemy, whoever you're trying to be elusive to, they've already scoped you out. There's a song from Black Moon that says, that goes, I got you open. And the chorus goes, don't front, I got you open. So the idea is that if I'm a sniper, where you fronting? If you turn your back on me, that's still the front because I got you open. If you turn your side to me, that's still the front because I got you open. So I say that to say, you're adding more problems in the dynamic of engaging with said women when you're not upfront about these circumstances. How to be upfront is a whole different conversation. But if you're thinking you can bamboozle or beguile or manipulate, you're not the best manipulator that exists, right? Each individual, especially the men that are listening, you got to be able to recognize you're not the best one on this planet. Some of these women will play deaf and dumb, and they already have you where they want you to be. Where is that? Wherever they want you to be, that they can say, hey, you raped me. Hey, I feel unsafe with you. Hey, I want to marry you. They got you. So I don't want men to be hearing this, or males especially, to be hearing this and then thinking to themselves that they can, if you live with your parents, don't put that on your Hinge account. You see what I'm saying? But don't avoid the realities of what comes with that. When it's time for the woman to say, hey, let's spend some, let me come to your home. What home? You live with your parents.
Okay, so
right?
Now that brings another topic. That brings up the topic of fake it till you make it.
Which you shouldn't do.
So you believe that you should live according to how you are financially. There shouldn't be any changes whatsoever, and you get what you can get. Like in terms of females, don't try to fake it till you make it, even if you gave them the perception of you being more prosperous than you actually
but you're not,
are.
so don't do it. Don't do that. Most men, especially the men that are listening to me, listen, you can be in Cambodia for all I know. We have to stop the nonsense, ladies and gentlemen, especially to the males, because you're a part of this problem when you have this facade. We're living in a recession, almost a Great Depression or a Greater Depression. The monetary system is destructive and is divisive. It's set up to be against masculinity, against male upliftment, and against male a positive trajectory. So women know this. This is what the exchange of feminism has been for the last 60 years. It's been a swap of power and swap of control. Very few men live that 1 percentile lifestyle, 10 percentile lifestyle. So the odds are the average man that you're looking at is indeed average.
But see, women are not as analytical as you are.
These women,
they actually believe that it's a higher percentile that are living a good life rather than what you're saying. What you're saying right now.
Absolutely.
No, they don't.
They do.
No.
Hold on. Let me get into this quick.
Yeah.
So like you said there's a higher like women from your anecdotal
Yeah.
experiences have said that they believe that so you've seen it on
seen
social
it on
media.
social
You've seen
media,
it
yeah.
everywhere.
What have
where-
I seen?
Well,
I've
okay.
seen it.
Well,
Seen what? What are we talking-
Okay, let's explain what we've seen.
Yeah, tell
we've
me.
seen people and content creators and whatever the case may be, and it could be subjective. I'm not saying that they're not necessarily just putting that out there, but when they ask questions about how much does a guy have to make, the numbers are typically 6 figures. As we know, that's not an average, right? But women say at least 6 figures, at least 100 grand,
bare
as
minimum.
if that's something that is and then the guy has to explain, oh, that's the top 10%, and then they're all, oh, what? Wait, what? Oh, I didn't know. And a lot of the times, what I'm noticing from my own experiences is that women aren't as analytical as you think in terms of they don't look at the numbers. They don't know the numbers. I've dated women that I've told them I've worked this job, and they don't know the numbers. They don't understand the numbers. They
I'm
don't
not-
understand what's really going
so,
on financially.
I'm not saying, not to cut you off, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that they know the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm saying the conversation that we're having
Yeah.
that narrows into the numbers is problematic. What they know is they know who is, quote, successful or not successful. So when they have discussions,
How do they know
I
that? How do they
interject on
How
that.
do they know that fact? Go ahead, but
it doesn't. It's not.
how do they know whether somebody is financially successful or not?
There's many ways, and I can describe it if you guys want to hear it. So which way, like, what do you want to exactly know?
What,
do you
what I'm
want
trying to say is, if
Yeah.
someone doesn't know your bank account, they don't know how
Yes, they do.
financially
Stop this.
successful
Yes,
you
they
are.
do.
No, they
Yes,
don't.
they do.
Okay, so how?
your mannerisms? Your mannerisms. Women are, that's what I'm saying. They don't need to know the analytical, hey, this person makes 72,000 or his job as a plumber is actually going to earn him X to Y. It's not like they're going on Google to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to Forbes Fortune 500 companies to be like, okay, people who have this position must make this. That's not what I'm saying. They're not doing that research. Right?
Depending on the woman.
This is what I'm saying. I'm saying that the average woman
Okay.
that you guys are saying gets shocked when a man tells her, hey, I don't make 100,000. When they put that threshold 100,000, they know that's a number that most men don't achieve. So what they're trying to do in that circumstance is saying, unless you were this highbrow or this highfalutin or this level of what I deem or what the society around me, this feminism regime, we always got to look at it as a regime. This feminism regime dictates that men who make 100,000 or more should be worthy of our eggs, should be worthy of our time. So that's why they set it as a high jump bar, a benchmark to jump over. So what they're trying to say is they don't want no scrubs. You know that song, I don't want no scrubs, da 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 da. And in fact, they even define what a scrub is. So they don't, right? No, seriously, if you go back into that song,
Yeah.
they're saying, what's a scrub?
Yeah, they explain that, yeah.
They basically say, what's a scrub
Yeah.
is someone who makes less than 100,000. So it don't even matter. They don't need to know the
But
funds.
yeah,
they just know it from
but-
your
but-
mannerisms.
But here's the
right?
thing, even with that song, not to,
These
to,
women-
to jump on that example, but I remember them describing you if you're sitting in the passenger seat, but a car has 2 people. There's going to be a driver and there's going to be a passenger.
If you keep
you
sitting
don't
in
know
that-
if the passenger, what he's doing.
Is she
and this
watching
is what
you
I'm
every
try-
single time?
But what I'm trying to point out is that women are quick to presumptions of
Yep.
others and of lifestyle. So with the woman, and if you're trying to persuade them into liking you, a lot of people understand that you have to have the markers of success in order to get them. Because just like you said, oh, they can sniff it out, they can see it out.
Which
yeah,
means
you're
that-
absolutely right.
which means that-
and somebody can fake that. That's
You
not
cannot
hard to do.
fake it for
Abs-
long, and
you
it
can
is.
never fake it for long.
So
But a
here's the
lot of the
thing.
times, these guys are not trying to make relationships with these girls. They're
So-
trying to make a quick,
I
a quick get
But if
together
it's
I think
with a
that's
lot
where
of
the
these
perception.
women.
I think that's where you're getting mistaken.
Yeah.
You're looking at it in the sense that he's trying to get into a long-term relationship.
that's how we were providing it when we were talking about
most
family
men-
structures and
most
how-
men are
Yes.
not always. That's not
if
always
you're
the objective.
yeah.
That's not always the objective. Sometimes they're
These
just,
men, let me say this:
I'm
the
talking
men,
about major like attraction.
these males that
typically
want to
to
just
attract
sleep with women. I'm being as vocal as I can possibly be.
Most-
if you're listening to, if you're
I'll
a
say
ma-
majority of men, that is the intention
then
right
you're
now.
a loser.
Because
if you're a male that just wants to sleep around in the times that we're in and not realizing there's a regime, there's powers that be that want to stifle your existence, and all you care is about getting your penis wet, you are the epitome of a loser and a failed individual. It's going to be a matter of time before your life crumbles. We're living in psychological warfare here, guys.
Well, not everybody
right?
is aware of that.
And that's what I'm saying. So we don't.
Well, but
we-
that's due to
so
their
that's why we're trying to
ignorance,
make.
right?
That's what we're trying to
So how
inform
could
them.
they be a
That's like-
loser?
yeah.
Wait, how could they
We're
be a
trying to inform
loser if they're ignorant to that fact? How could they be a loser if they're
Because
ignorant to that
they're
fact?
they're not as, and that's, you guys are really good. They're not as ignorant to the fact as you think they are. Everybody
You
realize.
don't know that. That's,
We
that's
gotta-
a
What is
Okay,
what is
but
so
we
all
gotta
these
look-
males are retards?
Yeah, but here's the
I
thing.
didn't
because then
say
women-
that.
so-
I'm just
'cause
saying
then
that
women
they're
might have a
ignorant to the
point.
fact
Some
of
women
the
might have a point.
information that you're providing.
Hold on a second, because we got to
We're
look
giving
at
too
that.
much slack to some of these males,
Let's
man.
look at that though. Right? So you're saying a man is a loser if their intentions are to
If
just
their
have,
primary.
yeah, if
and
their
s-
primary objective is to have casual sex, right?
Yep.
You're saying they're a loser because
Especially at the age of 30 above.
okay, so you're saying at the age of 30 above. So how about the younger men? What would that be described as?
From 17 to probably 25, the closer you get to 30, you must be changing your life. There's more to life than putting your penis in a woman.
Absolutely,
Right?
You're
So
absolutely
if
right
you
about
get
that.
to
Yep.
30 to 40 and all you want to do is live that high life and get that fad of a feeling, you don't have your priorities straight. You do not. And that's fine. The reason why it's fine is because society recently has subsidized all sorts of behaviors. So you can actually prolong that behavior for about 25 years. In today's world, as long as you have a job and you have a roof over your head, and like if that's even what these people aspire to, then yeah, you can spend your money on paying for those kind of encounters with women. You can go to the club every Friday. But in the end of it, because society likes to pretend, oh, there's no standards, we don't judge. Quite that nonsense. Of course we judge. So in the end of it, when you're 55 and all you remember looking back into your life is that you were plowing this chick and plowing that chick, you were an unsuccessful individual. Now, did you have fun? Of course you had fun. Do those memories mean anything? For men, today's society, because of the feminism, it's actually done such a phenomenal job of getting men to themselves sell their birthright. So we're being attacked from one side of the warfare, one side of the, let's say one side of the world. And then we have an internal battle. When I say we, I don't mean me, but men as a whole have an internal battle to accept some of the lies and the doctrines and the dogmas that's been given to us from the regime, to believe that just sleeping around is fulfillment enough.
But
There is a calling. We all have a calling and we all have a purpose. There is such a thing as not fulfilling your purpose. And a lot of people these days are doing that. That doesn't make them successful. It actually makes them a failure. But as long as no one like myself is saying that to them, then they can live in the disillusion.
Well, here's
see
the
what
thing.
I'm
I want to question that
Talk to me.
because, again, you said that makes them a loser if they're chasing after women and their sole purpose is to sleep with said women.
Yep.
Then that makes them a loser. So now we have to look at it. Say we go to high level men, right? Men that are capable of getting a lot of women. Hold on.
No,
Men
I'm
that are
listening.
capable of getting a lot of women. Men that are successful, proven, ridden, seen, stamped. They're who they are.
Successful
they put
where?
in what? Well, you're saying your success definition, which I never got to. So I want to know what you define as success, because you said that makes an individual a loser, which I think is subjective. I think you're saying what your opinion is of that. That's what I'm trying to say. So if a man that has success financially, spiritually, mentally, whatever he had to do to make himself in the best man he needs to be, but he indulges in pleasures because that's just a pleasure, none other than like gambling or doing recreational drugs, drinking. That's the same type of addiction or vice that people get into. So you're basically saying anyone that has a vice is a loser.
That's not what I said. I said if you make it your primary focus.
Okay.
If you make it your primary focus,
But I don't think that's
a high
everyone's
value,
primary.
It's
Like,
a
I
lot
don't
of
think that's people's primary focus. I mean, money would be more primary than
For what
chasing
reason?
tail,
For what reason?
because it could potentially get you said tail.
So do you see what I'm saying? It's it's not money that's the primary. It's money's the medium of exchange to get to the conclusion,
But I
to get
think
to the
that's-
finish line, which is the tail.
And I think
That's not a successful man.
no, but look, even if I ask Sonny, what would you if money gets you what you want, right? And that could be anything, because money is what gets you your wants and needs out of life. That's what we're told. We're told possessions and being able to have the ability to dictate what you want to dictate, make your own rules, buy an island. I'm talking about high level billionaires. that's the ultimate like level as a human, as people think, at least for a general person just thinking money is the biggest thing on earth, right? So if that's all said and done, and that person, you know, wants to indulge in pleasures, why would they be considered anything they indulge in? What would make them a loser in your perspective? Like, what makes somebody a loser to you?
That's a good question, because the thing is, when it comes to a person actually being a loser, that would be subjective based off my own thought process of what I consider what a loser is.
You guys are really doing this today. You're saying it's subjective?
Yeah, it is subjective.
It
for
is
sure.
subjective. It
For
has
sure.
to
When
be.
it comes to
There's
when
a
it comes to
subjective
so you're
element.
saying that there's a standard
Yes,
of
there
what
is.
is considered
Yes,
a
there
loser
is.
internationally.
Yes, there is.
So-
morally,
okay,
not
so-
internationally. Morally.
Okay,
If you went to a different,
okay.
if you went to a different planet,
Yeah,
And-
okay, you can say morally. Morally,
Okay,
makes
morally,
sense.
okay.
If we make it specific like that,
yeah,
Okay.
if you went
that's
to a
right.
different planet, these rules are still applying that planet.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Right? As a species, we're supposed to do what? What is the purpose of our species?
Recreate like
To multiply.
procreation.
Okay, so procreation means what? Have children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to multiply.
Okay, so if you don't procreate, was that successful for your species? No.
No.
You've just let someone else subsidize your nonsense.
Yeah.
You've existed in that space, but someone else has taken the natural obligation to actually go forth. The cool thing about that is that person gets their legacy to go in time. Your legacy dies right there and then. So males who think that I don't need to have children, you're telling yourself lies. You don't need to, like there is no weapon put to your head saying that if you don't do this, you're gonna die right now. No, you can survive. You can survive. This is the reverse is true for the women that might be listening, be like, I don't want children. I just da. Sure. These are outcomes. You can have different outcomes. But to say that now the outcome that you have is therefore equal to standards and objective truths that you don't align to is a whole different beast. So I gave you one example there that you actually have an objective for your nature, for your being to procreate. But procreation is not just that, right? You have to thrive. So that's when you now get the financial means that people like to
See,
emphasize.
that's parameters
oftentimes.
that you put, because people can procreate even when they don't have the economic
So what
stability.
happens to that? Is that successful? No, that's
But
foolishness.
wait a minute.
Talk to
That
me.
means that they still filled their duty, which is to multiply.
But-
there's no parameters to multiply.
Yes, there is. I just described that.
No,
If
I'm
you-
saying like in terms of even if they're not economically sound
Yeah.
to multiply, they can still multiply because there's
There's still
people
value in that.
they're still able to
what?
procreate even though they don't have the economic means to procreate.
Which means what happened to what you just procreated? It would not thrive.
Well, they could go into the system.
Potentially,
What
but
system?
no,
The-
but
the government
But you have to look
system.
at if you're looking at percentages. Yes, of
this
course,
is-
the
I like this.
percentages will might tell you that these kids are not going to be thriving. But of course, there's going to be a small percentage that do end up thriving. Obviously, in those scenarios. So what's
why
that
we
worth?
So why we emphasizing the small percentage? I think if you guys
But,
hear
but
what I'm
what does it matter? And
it,
like,
it doesn't matter to
what
you
I'm trying
because
to
you don't
say
have a
is-
dog in that fight. But
Yeah.
you wouldn't want your child to be that 1% or 30% or 80%
Well, I
that
wouldn't put
isn't
myself
thriving.
in that position. I wouldn't.
Why wouldn't you put
No, because
yourself in that
right
position?
now what you're trying to do is you're trying to make me step into that shoe.
What shoe?
That shoe of that person that's procreating with individuals that like. So the guy that's not economically sound, you're talking about if he procreated and that your child is now not viable to actually live a better life. You're saying
The
how about
odds
if you
are
were in
against
that
you.
shoe? And I can't put myself in that.
you brought up
predicament.
that you brought up that scenario
I
to
brought
me.
up the scenario for somebody else, but it's not a scenario that I would put on myself. I'm just giving you a scenario of what can potentially happen in terms of he's still doing his duty as a human on Earth to multiply and to procreate.
So-
Whether
He
he's
definitely did
economically
his duty.
sound or not, all that other extra stuff.
You didn't do
that's
your duty.
Parameters.
You didn't do your duty. This is the reason
How?
why. This is the reason I'm trying to explain it. This is the reason why women, man. My whole thesis and the theme of what I'm saying is we have to go back to the basics and the fundamentals that make us human, that make us good, that make us social. Not these new age fads and positions and distractions that we're accustomed to. So you're not doing your duty and fulfilling your duty if all you did was release the sperm. That's not where the duty ends. If that's all where the duty ends, then sure, claps to you. You release the sperm.
He
and in fact,
replenished the earth, did he not?
well, you don't get to replenish the earth if the seed you just put in fell on the wayside and isn't even being watered properly. That's not
Well, there's
replenishing
always
the earth.
going to be always
but the
going to be
argument-
seeds that
Yeah.
are going to
But
fall
do you-
into
but
the
hold
way.
on,
But
hold on.
even with the full family, it doesn't.
We need. Do you guys
Yeah.
hear what you're
Percent-
saying?
Like I said, it's a percentage game.
Do
Like,
you,
you're
do you
playing
hear
a
what you're
percentage
saying
game.
though?
I hear what I'm saying.
You're
because
advocating for the seed.
I'm not advocating
No,
it.
I'm not
So
advocating.
why we keep playing devil's advocate about the seed that don't fall on the wayside? We're trying to talk about the
Because
seed.
in the natural reality of life, not every seed is going to be productive.
Why should we be focusing on that right now when I'm trying to encourage men to find the productive elements of their seed and productive elements of who they are? And I'm saying that you're not finding that productive element of who you are if you're using your resource to be paying for swingers or to be paying for whatever have you on every Friday or every Thursday, whenever you do these type of things.
Yeah, but
There's more to life to aspire to and to obtain. And a lot of it
Absolutely.
has to deal with duty. As men, we've lost duty in this feministic matriarchal society where they extract your resource to the pleasure and the whims of women.
But
One
here's
of
the thing. Here's the thing about what you said.
Talk
Now,
to
what
me.
you said is absolutely true. If we're here talking to men and we're trying to give advice, absolutely, what you're saying is correct.
Even the women too. This applies to women too in
this
their own
applies-
ways too,
this
right?
applies to everybody.
No, for
but
sure.
at the same time, you need to have the pushback because at the end
Yeah.
of the day,
Pushback.
there's gonna be people that are gonna say the exact same pushback we're saying,
Yeah.
right?
Well, these
and they're gonna
pushback-
say, how am I a loser?
Well, I
I'm
just told you.
doing good in life and I'm doing what I need to do and I'm still getting hoes and I'm
I just told you how you're a loser.
no, but what I'm saying is
Not you, but the
yeah, but
hypothetical.
the people are gonna have those arguments, right? People are gonna have that constructive criticism or that back and forth because they need to know why your ideology is trumps theirs, or why
Because
they're
mine-
not living the right life in your opinion.
Because
right?
mine is
So-
right. Mine is right, and it's not mine. It's something I discovered as true, and I can prove it.
Yeah.
1 + 1 being 2 is not mine. It's an equation that once we discover and we know what the outcome of that equation is, we put it above another outcome that says 1 + 1 is 17. There's logic and rationale. And in today's society, men have abandoned the ability to have rational discussions because they've gotten to a defeatist mentality of what's the point of going further into knowing objective truths and objective things because I don't get rewarded for it. My boss is not going to give me a position higher because of it. I don't see any benefit from having a critical and more assessed mind in situations. I just want to do now, this is the problem with the society, I just want to do carnal things. And the carnal thing is getting the penis wet. The carnal thing is playing video games. The carnal thing is satisfying their immediate flesh because they don't see reason to go out into the world anymore. So that defeatist mentality is not something I champion. So if I hear it, I'm going to bring my sword and I'm going to go against it and behead that sort of thinking because I am a righteous man and I'm striving for nobility. So even if a man says, oh, that's your values, that's your view. Well, real niggas know. Real men know. People who know what I'm saying go back to their own homes and say, let me assess my life. In this area, in this area, in this area, I'm not doing so well. Let me strive and aspire to greater things and be far from normal. The weak type of men say normality is my norm. I'm okay with this. Hey, I get to use some of my monies and travel to a whole different country where I don't get to see my influence there. When I go there, if I'm taking the Beck taxi over there, or if I'm taking a king cab, whatever it is I'm taking, it wasn't my business. But I sure bet my bottom dollar that it belongs to a man who decided to put his imprint in that land. When I come back here, I look around and say, where's my imprint? Oh, I don't have one. My only imprint is tax time. Give like a BITCH my income to the government that's going to use it to fund abortion, use it to fund operations that aren't mine, use it to fund all sorts of things. And what do I get from that? So if you're okay with that, then and you don't call that losing, okay, you're a winner in your sick mind. But if you hear this and you know that there's struggles occurring, you rise above despair. And this message I'm saying is very synonymous with those men that hit the gym. You can stay bland or you can pick up weight. Those that work overtime.
But this is a mentality, and
you-
I'm saying that
yeah.
that mentality needs
Not
to
everybody-
be cultivated, and not everybody has
Has it.
So that's why when you say that these people are losers,
It comes across harsh.
No.
It does. And I don't mean to come harsh.
This is the reality, but
Yes.
at the same time, I'm saying that these individuals may have not gotten the teachings and the proper cultivation in order to live a better life.
I'm teaching them now. I'm saying the first lesson you need to learn, lesson number one for those males that don't know, you have to understand, to the point Sonny said earlier, you have to look at it as warfare. We're in war right now. The major war is a psychological war. I would even take it further and morally and say there's also a spiritual war.
Yes.
There's darkness upon this land, and you can't just sit down and think what you see is just what you see. There's more things that you're not seeing on a day-to-day basis. But the best way I try to reach out to these males is to recognize, here's one way you can find out that you're living in, dare I call it, the matrix, or in a simulation, or in some place where you are enslaved and entrapped. What happens to the money that you work hard for? The reason why we bring it back to the money oftentimes is because you see your hard labor. You see the labor you do, whether it's your mental labor, your physical labor, or a combination of both. You see yourself exacting effort into the world. And so I say to those individuals, when you do that with your 9 to 5, what do you get back? Is it just okay that you get cancer in the form of sugars that you get in a beverage, or marijuana or cigarettes, whatever have you? Is that fulfilling for what you put your efforts to? And if it is, that you can stay there. This message is not for everybody, but I'm not encouraging you to stay there. I'm saying that when you start recognizing and saying, wait a minute, you know, I thought when I was a child that I can get to a place, you were saying earlier on, where I can get a house. I'm now 37. The average homeowner, you're saying, from what you checked out, is getting one at 36. How the hell is this happening? Or you don't got to be 37. You can be 30 saying, if I check my bank account today, I probably only have $19. And I know these homes go for $1 million, at least, in some of these parts of the world, in some of these cities, these urban areas. How am I going to get to $1 million? Then when you start asking these inquisitive questions, I'm here to tell you, you'll start realizing that maybe it's by design and you've been blinded and cultivated to not care about yourself enough to realize that by design, you were meant to get the short end of the stick. And lo and behold, it's not just you. A lot of people who happen to be your gender are doing this. For what purpose? For the purpose of elitist, evil men and women who want to extract from you, back like they did in slavery times, which, what is slavery? Slavery is just taking away someone's complete labor and their hand and their effort and returning what to them? Virtually nothing, right? So taxation is a form of slavery is what I always say, especially income tax.
But even these elitists, you have to understand that every person that makes it up to that class, right, already understands the system. So they had to claw and crawl and do everything in their power to get to that elite class. And when they got to that elite class, they seen how these people have maintained order while they were in that elite class, right? So now when you're in that elite class, you can make two decisions. You can look at it and say, you know what? I don't want to be a part of this class. I'm just going to drop back to normality and join the mediocre people over there on the other side and be a protester and an activist and complain about how life is not fair and I need wages to go higher. And you could be doing that, or you could stand on the elitist side and say, you know what? This is how, remember, the system has already been constructed. One person's not going to change that system.
Correction, that's not an elite class, by the way.
You don't consider them as
that's
a elite
a
class.
powerful class. Elite means what? That you weighed your bronze and you weighed your mental capacity over somebody else and you succeed. You can't consider yourself a successful person in that scenario when you've beguiled and you're running this race and you shot everybody else in the thigh and in the foot while you are able-bodied. That doesn't constitute elite.
That's considered
That's
as
powerful. That's control. So there's a class that controls. And just because you're in a class that controls don't mean you're in a good class. That can be an evil class. So as you climb up the ranks financially, that's what it seems like you're describing when you say elite. You climb
Well,
up the-
not financially. It'll be
Well,
more
there has to be a level of there
For
has
sure,
to be
finance,
influence.
but
Yeah, finance
influence would
plays
be
a
more.
influence.
Influence would be the name behind the family.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because you can have money
there's a
and
lot-
not have the family history, which doesn't serve you well in terms of a
no, because you can
class.
buy in.
No, you can't.
You can buy
No,
it.
you
Yes, you
can't.
can. Yes, you can.
Because
Yes,
if
you
you don't have no track record, then no one could.
if the track
for-
record is your business, if
No,
your
no,
track,
no. That's not your track record.
is your family.
Your family's
I said
history.
if the track record is your, you don't need to know Jeff Bezos' family history. He'll tell you that his mother wasn't anything. He'll tell you that his father wasn't anything.
But
So
there's-
how is he an elite class then?
Because there's certain elite classes that discriminate against the newcomers.
But here's the thing. Green is less of a discrimination when you get to those levels.
Old money doesn't care about new money.
Old money, that's not true. That's
Yes,
an
yes, it
economic
is.
misconception. Old money cares so much about new money. That's the reason why they try to incorporate new money into their old practices so that they can stifle new money from coming with innovation that will change the old system.
Sometimes they don't want the old system to change because they're so.
This is
if
what I'm
you
saying.
look-
They're very
They
traditional,
don't
for
want.
sure.
It's not traditional. That's not
Yeah, it
traditional.
is.
They're stagnant.
Yeah,
You can call it. You can call it.
We have to be.
semantics.
It's no. The semantics
It
matter
is.
because the
No.
tradition will make it seem like hunter gatherers,
It is.
right?
It is stagnant.
It-
It
Yes.
is.
Those what we're describing here are ivory tower powerful folk of individuals, a cabal of individuals who want to remain fat and decadent at their position.
Of course.
So whether it was a traditional view or a progressive view doesn't matter to them. As long as the house in this casino metaphor always wins, it doesn't even really matter too much what kind of style it is. If the rich people who, because look, companies now used to have, not to cut you out, but companies is a brief one. Automotive companies, what do they used to use? Gasoline.
Yep.
So what happens now that EV is a new thing, right? New sustainable
Well, they're
energy is
trying to
kicking in.
stop it, right? They're trying to
What they
continue
try,
with the fossil fuel.
they might try that until they say, there's no stopping this machine.
that point,
but
yeah.
I'll adapt because I already have the infrastructure and the foundation to just easily incorporate my
that
old
See,
into the
but
new.
no, but that's only when their back is against the wall.
No, that's only when they see equal amount of money or more.
No,
I'm
no,
trying
I
to tell
don't-
you,
I-
a lot
I
of rich
think-
men.
I disagree
No, of
because
course.
it's like, for example, when Netflix came to Blockbuster
Mm-hmm.
at the earlier stages of Blockbuster and said, "Hey, you could buy our technology and then you could stream online." Blockbuster looked at them and laughed and said, "Who are you guys? You came out of nowhere, and this would be considered as new money."
New money.
Like, yeah. Who are you guys? You're coming out here talking. You're trying to sell me a dream about streaming online. What the hell is all of this about? Like, what's this about? We're Blockbuster. Do you know how many, like, we're franchise. We're everywhere. We're the big dogs in town. Who are you? No one knows who you are. You don't exist anywhere. And you want us to what? Just come here and take
bet-
you on?
I bet you there are individuals within the board of
They
administration.
had to lose. Blockbuster had to lose everything. And then Netflix had to come in, buy
Because of
stores.
old thinking. But the point is about
Blockbuster-
old
It's the point.
thinking.
It's the-
Old
it's the
thinking.
thinking.
The
It's
Blockbuster
the
never
thinking.
managed to transition
What
from being Blockbuster,
They
the
had to be
storefront,
destroyed.
to being Blockbuster,
And
the
this
streaming
is
system.
yeah, and we're kind of going into this is naturally we're going into like discussing the dynamics and the nuances of elitism.
Yeah, we're
but what I'm
definitely
saying
getting
is
into that.
Blockbuster as a corporation and company, you best believe that they would have heard. They would have heard of these new
Of course,
innovative
of course,
ideas,
yeah.
Absolutely.
People that
and they
are
drag their
watching
feet.
and-
But the point I'm saying is, money allows you to drag your feet. And then when you realize this thing can't be stopped, you might try to use your resources to stop it. But then while you're
They'll
doing
buy
that,
it sometimes.
while
They'll
you're
buy them out.
and sometimes
Alright.
they'll even buy shares. So who's to
Yeah,
say these
shares,
blockbuster
don't
masters?
have shares
That-
in these
that
do
is
they,
true.
do you look at that situation being like,
That's
listen,
true.
if you can't beat them, then join them while I'm still trying to beat them.
That
Yeah.
is
Right?
true,
I'll still
that-
fund the other side,
True, we
even though I
never
want
we
this
never really
preference.
look into the corporation as a whole, where individuals
'Cause they're very
well,
elusive.
Yes,
But
yes.
let's talk about elitism. Let's talk about elitism and what's going on. I know there's I don't know if you heard about the Jeff Epstein list.
Epstein, yeah.
Epstein, sorry.
You're trying to get us murked?
The big, man, but we got to bring it up because
No, you can bring it
up. Well, I seen it on social media. I'm like, yeah, there's a big whole thing about it. I just remembered it right now, and talking about elitism and having this list of prestigious people. We're talking about princes, CEOs of huge companies, celebrities. The list dropped and it had a bunch of people that were prominent, basically fashion designers, moguls,
Powerful people.
business people, and all that type of stuff. So obviously, the whole case with Jeff Epstein was a bunch of debaucherous shit was happening on his island, allegedly, with these famous people and these people of notoriety. So when it comes to elitism and people having power, influence, and that type of thing going on, where, in your opinion, do you think that success and money changes the character of some individual, or do you think power and money is a negative for people? Do you think that's something that people should have or shouldn't have? Like, I'm talking about at the highest of levels. Do you think humans should have the ability to be that much more powerful, influential, and monetarily better than the rest around them?
The way I answer that is by saying this. We don't just wrestle against mere flesh and blood. There's moral truths to these things, and there's good and evil. So when you ask me a very important question like that, good people should use power and money to do good things. But if you're not a good person and you're corrupted for whatever reason, because you can be corrupted long before you get money. What money does is just the medium of exchange. It amplifies what you are and what you want to do already. Sometimes you can get those type of individuals that fall on, like, you know, a situation with the lottery. A person that wins the lottery yesterday is not going to change what they've been thinking in their worldview of the world prior to that day. So they're going to say, finally, I can use my money for good or use my money for evil. They never think that way. When they say they want to buy a house, I mean, a house, that would be good. But if you're buying up all the houses in your neighborhood while no one has a house, that house that you just bought up, is that now a good practice? So it depends.
I
You see
would
what I'm
question
saying?
that
It
because
depends.
now the purpose of buying out all the houses could mean, one, that you're trying to protect your neighborhood from any I would call robber barons.
That could be a good intention.
Yeah, it could be a good intention, but
yeah.
you tried to see it. You looked at it as a
No,
negative.
I didn't.
I thought you were using it as a negative.
Truthfully, I
saying
was
that
assuming,
potentially-
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
that it
That was
could.
the
Potentially could be a negative
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
situation.
That was the assumption, but I said.
But you gave a good example.
Yeah, but
No.
the intentions could be I'm protecting my neighborhood that I grew up in, and I'm buying up all the houses to protect the community that has already been built here and to build it for it to strive on its own. But I'm just the guardian of
So
the properties.
That can be a good intention,
Yeah.
and evil outcome can come from that. So here's a good example that's happening right now when you talk about, here we go, Palestine and the war that's going on over there, especially with the Israel folk. I call them Israel folk for a reason. What are they doing? They can have good intention to retaliate and defend themselves from, let's call it, if we think that that's what it is, and say terrorism. And I only say that because I want to take the time to say I'm not here exacting sides here. So I don't want anybody to listen to me and say, oh, he's taking the Palestinian side, he's taking the Israeli side. I'm just saying, if these individuals on one side believe that going to war is for this intention, is to protect their family, that is a good intention. But the way we measure how good the intention was oftentimes has to be from the outcome. So if you're finding out that, wow, you went in there to try to exterminate or eradicate militants, but now 95% of your bomb is affecting beyond those groups of people. In fact, maybe you're not even reaching the militants, but you're reaching others. And there's a constant, I don't care, because the objective is this. At a certain point, you have to understand that good requires refinement. Evil has no need to explain itself. So that's how we find out who's doing what in those moments. Because what happens, and I want to just bring it back into the dating realm, what happens is women will say, I just want a man that makes 100,000. Isn't that a good intention? I want to live life lavish.
Yeah, of
I just
course.
want to be okay and be well off. Well, not a bad intention. But you're going to divorce him and extract his funds?
Yeah, now that.
And you
Yeah.
made yourself out to be someone that loved him? So that's the only reason you got in? At this point in time, is that a good intention? So motive is a definite factor in this circumstance.
But okay.
And it's really tough to define motives, but we usually try to define it with the action, especially if the action wasn't interrupted by the individual doing that action.
Okay,
Right?
so I have a question. With logic,
Talk to me.
where does good and evil land when it comes to logic. So
Good
when
question.
people make decisions not based on good intentions or bad intentions, just like if you're firing someone, right? It's not that you have bad intentions to fire that person, that said person that works for your business. You have good intentions for your business. Obviously, in his opinion, you have bad intentions for him, because that means he's out of a job or she's out of a job, and for you, you're in a good scenario. So of
in
course,
his sentiment,
in
his opinion.
yeah, in the sentiment in this sentiment, he would believe that it's a bad situation for him, and the other guys could believe it's a good situation. So, like I said, when it comes to logically and making decisions based on logic, because I picture that even when we talk about elite status individuals or families and whatnot, and buying out a whole neighborhood instead of just buying the one house, but actually having control over the everything of what's going on, so other people don't come in and try and dictate themselves. Where does good and bad start to weigh when it's just logical decisions people are making that's based on rationale rather than this is a bad intention or this is a good intention? Because
Logic
it seems like that good and bad is very objective to a lot of people.
Objective, not subjective. I like that you said objective, but I think you meant to say subjective, right?
Sorry,
Yeah.
subjective to a lot of people.
And I'll counter that and say it's actually not subjective just because a person doesn't know it.
But
it's
I said, well,
it's objective. They just don't know it.
Okay, so you can
logic,
say that.
yeah.
Yep.
So logic is a vehicle. Logic is like an Uber.
Mm-hmm.
You wherever that vehicle is going to, you don't exactly blame the vehicle. You blame the prime motivator, the actor. So if you wanted to fire somebody because you wanted to earn an extra dollar, or you wanted your bit, because essentially, if we're talking business, the goal is for the bottom line, so the growth of the business financially. That intention, is that a good intention? Well, you can know if it's a good, logical. Let me just say this. Is that logical? Most things people do are very logical, so that's the problem. Logical and rational and moral are three different conversations. Logical is, can you see why the person's doing it? Moral is, now that you see why the person's doing it, is that good? Is that bad? And then that's when we use rationale to try to determine that logic we saw, does it side on the side of good or does it side on the side of bad? So in the case of this individual that's laying off somebody, are you laying off somebody just so your company can make an extra dollar? What is the motive and the reason, hence the rationale, for laying that person off? If it's for growth and you know you could have laid them off in a cordial, humanistic, or humanity-driven way, in a very kind, caring way that sometimes people like to say, oh, business has no role in that. That's not true. Business does have a role. How you treat people, good business is done by righteous people. Bad business is done by evildoers. So the way how you egress and how you dissolve that situation will let you know if what you're doing is good. So this is the same circumstance we discuss in conversations and situations such as blood diamonds. Is it wrong to mine for diamonds? Can you see the logic as to why people are mining for diamonds? Of course. Is there value in diamonds? Yes. How are you going about it? Well, did 5 million people have to die? Exaggeration here. Did 5 million people have to die just so that you can have shiny earrings? If that's the case, that's not moral, even though it's logical. It was logical that I need to get that diamond by any means. So that introduces the concept of, does the end justify the means? And that's a conversation that each scenario provides.
So the only thing I would say about in terms of morality is that's based off the society that you're in.
No.
I believe that in certain societies, in terms of how many people die for specific items, is not calculated, or it's not such a big deal.
The cost of life is not the same in every country.
Exactly.
Based
Fuzzy
off
put it
of
best,
how the
yeah.
countries interpret that.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's-
How
but
the
that's
But
what
we
I'm
don't
saying.
need, when we have moral discussions, morality, we said this earlier, is beyond international. Morality,
morality,
morality
yeah.
exists for
But-
this galaxy, for the universe.
but what if-
So if that country, for instance, doesn't accept what we know as right, whether we know it by privilege, we were just born on the right side. You
side,
can
yeah.
sometimes just be born on the right side.
yeah,
Sometimes you can be born on the wrong side. But just because you're born on the wrong side and this is how you do it, doesn't mean it's morally good.
But
it might
here's the
mean
thing,
that it's
but-
acceptable.
But where's the relevancy in that?
Yeah, exactly. Who
where-
judges that
That's
person?
where I say, well, that's why they say
Well,
like
God
the
judges
story,
that person.
like they say like the victor to
The victor writes the history. Or
and to the
like,
spoils go. To the victor goes the spoils,
Yes,
and
yeah.
they decide
what history is
like
supposed to be
whether
written.
it's right or wrong. It does not matter because at the end of the day, it's just like the society we live in here. Was it wrong that they came here and took land from the natives? Was that
The
a right
indigenous, yeah.
decision? No. Was that a morally right or correct decision to do? No. Are we benefiting from it? Yes. Are we complaining about it later, 100 years later? No. Because why? Because
Some are.
Of course, some are. But what I'm trying to say is,
But
a
did
lot
they
of us,
move?
a
Did
lot
they
of us,
go
yeah.
back to their
Did you
homelands?
boycott? Did you move? Did you do something to make
They didn't
some
get off
cause
the
and
land.
effect?
They're-
You didn't do that. And the point of the matter is that a lot of things that have been morally wrong, if you benefited from it, a lot of people will not question a lot of
Yes.
these things. They might
That
have
doesn't-
it in the back of
Exactly.
their mind, but at the end of the day, what I'm saying, what's the relevancy behind that?
The relevancy behind it is you're damning your soul day to day. You're corrupting yourself and incorporating more evils in your day-to-day behaviors that you say it's okay, that you accept. The problem with that now is the society as a whole doesn't benefit in the long run because that sort of expedience, hey, I'm getting mine, I'm rich, I'm doing my own thing, so F everybody else. That sort of expedient behavior is what is degrading human life and is degrading the sanctity of social cohesion. When it gets to that stage now, we cannot be upset if a woman who cares only about herself in her, what's the term we're hearing these days from men and women? Narcissism.
Yes.
Which suggests what? Me, by any means, me. Forget responsibility of doing the right thing that can benefit beyond myself. When we get closer to those societies, it actually becomes so scary and dangerous because it's no longer all for one and one for all. It's all everybody for themselves. So when it's everybody for themselves, judging themselves with no moral standards, people do what they, that's why Aleister Crowley said, do what thy will be the law of the land. Do whatever you want. And that leads next step to anarchism because I'm going to take your body, whether you like it or not. I'm going to take your wealth, whether you like it or not. Look at the dangerous world we're living in.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I'm going to get Sonny's opinion on this because, of course, this is why you have religion. This is why you have
Put religion in
certain-
quotations.
Well, this is why you have these things because,
right.
again,
Order.
there needs to be order
Yeah.
and some type of rule book, basically. There has to be a handbook of right and wrong.
Of standards.
People have to have a standard of life and what's considered, egregious and what's considered, good. So
Exactly.
So I want to ask you, Sonny, when it comes to all of this, when we talk about right and wrong and there being inherent right and wrong and whether it's relevant or not, at the end of the day, even though I can believe this is the right move to do or this is right, of course, everyone has a different opinion on it. When it comes to that, are you so concerned about right and wrong when it comes to your own individual life? Because he's talking about it and he's saying like, people in this society, he wants to get away from that. He's like, because people are becoming so me. But how you see society today, that's probably, I'll ask you your opinion on that. Like, how do you see, I don't want to assume, but how do you see society? And in your opinion, what could be done in order to get things on track?
Well, I would say I follow the Darwinian theory where he says that life, when it comes to people and individuals, it's not the strong who win or I'm paraphrasing.
Survival of
it.
the fittest.
Yeah, survival of the fittest. So I'm an advocate of that thought process where he talks about it's not the strong who win or the intellectual. It's the one that adapts the most is the one that's able to, do the best when it comes to survival of the fittest. And there's even a saying where it says, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Preach.
And I actually believe in that theory because the society's gonna run how the society's gonna run. It's up to you to adapt to what's going on around you and how to maneuver and how to, duck and weave when it comes to the society. Now, I'm not gonna sit there and be righteous and say, this is how you're supposed to live. It's not my place to say how a person's supposed to live and what's considered as moral and what's not considered as moral. I'm going to conduct my life how I'm going to conduct it. And the people around me in terms of my family and the type of principles that I have, I'll try and spread that around my family and my community. I can't look at the world as a whole and try to save every soul in it. So that's why I say that I will adapt according to the society I'm in, and whatever comes, let it come, because I'll be able to adapt to it.
I'll say this much for myself when it comes to, morality, right, wrong, logical decisions, basing things on, logic that would make yourself better, like you said. Sometimes that's going to be considered selfish, and we can debate whether selfishness is a good or bad trait and whether it's necessary or not, because a lot of the times we make decisions based on how we feel, right? How we feel about certain things, how we were raised, how we were taught, whether it's right or wrong, we go off of that because that's just how we've been brought up. So when it comes to me, like I said, when it comes to morality and all that type of stuff, I always try to do what I feel is good, what I believe to be good, off of teachings that I've gotten from people that I respect, people that have lived lives that I feel that are respectable lifestyles, that weren't troublesome or didn't warrant any enemies or any bad karma. So I'd usually lean towards that, but I do know in life that we make decisions that are opposite to that when it's convenient for us. Of course, this is like committing crimes, possibly lying, embellishing the truth, stealing, whatever the case may be, in order to benefit yourself. So I just believe that when it comes to all of that, you're going to have a mixture of all sides of things, and it's not going to be determined whether it's right or wrong. I just believe that's what it is to be a human, is to have the yin and yang, basically. You're going to have two sides of the equation, and you're not always going to be morally correct. You're going to do stuff that are morally wrong, but that doesn't define you as a human. I think that you should be headed towards the right direction for the most part, but along the way, you're going to have your bumps, you're going to have your obstacles where you may choose wrong decisions, but life is full of random occurrences, so sometimes that could turn into a good situation for yourself. What do you got on it, Dry? Last words. Morality, right and wrong, the logic, and even the whole conversation with elitism, everything we talked about. What's your wrap up?
When I have conversations like this, I recognize that, and I want to share that I do evil things and have done evil things, but I wouldn't consider myself an evil man. I strive for righteousness and morality and doing noble things and things that are worthy of praise from the gods. So when you do hear me speak about these sorts of things, I'm not trying to be condescending. What I'm trying to do is bring clarity and be pure with my intentions of how one should see the world from a moral lens. But overall, I enjoyed the conversation. I think that we're in some dark times, and when you know who you are, you know what you're doing, you know what's happening in the playing field around you, you get a chance to be able to navigate. And that's why I always say, always know how to navigate. You got to know how to navigate in these dark times. So
100%, man. 100%, man. Always keep focused. At the end of the day, you know what's right and wrong, and you have that feeling. We all have that feeling of right and wrong. And again, we're talking about elitism, high level people that deal with things differently. Of course, we'd love to believe it's the same, but there are different aspects in life when power, influence, and all that's involved. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the times we believe that we can put ourselves in some other's shoes where we can't. So I like to have that understanding of those individuals, or lack of understanding, I guess, because I don't understand why they choose to do what they choose to do, because I can't empathize with those type of people. So I only can say how I feel at this current moment, at my current stage in life. I don't know how that would be altered with money, success, finances, all those type of things. So we'll leave it at that. And
100%.
man, that's the Far From Normal podcast, baby.
Yes, sir. And it's a wrap.
Let's
Deuces.
get it.
The way you make me feel. I'm just trying to get mine. I don't